What was a dude, just go home kinda moment when you witness someone trying to impress people? Myself and a friend were at a pub. Just two girls having a drink and a laugh. There was a dude who was bothering us all night. He was pretty drunk and very annoying. We were polite to him at first and conversed, but he was getting very sexual with his comments, so my friend just told him to FCK off. He left us alone, but at closing time we were outside waiting for our cab and he started again. Only this time he was being an even bigger dick. Calling us sluts and bitches, etc. A big guy who was close walked over and told him to piss off and stop bothering us. The drunk guy then tried to punch the big guy but misses, then realizing he's about to get his ass beat runs across the road and gets hit by a car. I'm a lifeguard, so I see lots of really awkward interactions between 12 and 14-year kids. My favorite is when a kid belly flopped trying to impress a girl and ended up throwing up instead. Former lifeguard. One time at the pool. Some kid tried to do a flip to impress his crush, but couldn't really swim that well and I had to get in and save him. Needless to say, she was not impressed. I had a guy pull up in the lane beside my car on a motorcycle at a red light. He did this little wave and kissy smooch face at me and kept revving it up. When the light turned, he tried to do a wheelie takeoff and ended up falling off. I stopped and asked if he was okay, at which point he realized that I was old enough to be his mother. Still makes me laugh. My best friend in high school used to come up with the most insane lies to be more interesting. She used to tell us her dad, who she had no contact with, owned multiple houses in an area similar to, I'd say, Malibu. She used to say she was a child model, and that her family opened the first Coke factory. It never stopped, and a year after we graduated, she bought a ring at something like a dollar store and told everyone she was engaged to a model from the US. When we asked to see a photo, she used a stock photo from Google Mail. We constantly had second-hand embarrassment. We were all waiting for the bus after school and this kid whipped out a guitar and sang a god-awful remix of some Jason Mraz song to his love interest. It didn't help that his absurdly unkempt fingernails were used as his guitar pick. It was a train wreck and I still violently cringe whenever I think about the poor girl just standing there trying to be polite throughout the ordeal. Edit. I know guitarists tend to have grown out nails. Yes, this kid was in the guitar class. I should have specified beforehand that it was the amount of brown gunk caked under his fingernails, which is why I said unkempt. Edit 2. Before more people you comment, most people who play have long fingernails or any variation. Please see this and know I've already corrected my original poorly specified sentence and have acknowledged it in several previous replies. It was this dude in high school who kept talking about how he was gonna sing a song to a girl he was crushing on and win her heart. We all thought he was just being stupid. Well, charity drive week comes, and you could like rent the mic in the cafe to raise money. Most people used it to like play their favorite CD or make their friends suffer through the worst 70s pop music or whatever. Well, this fucker Gary rents the mic and sings something to the girl, and yeah, dedicates it to her. So she's embarrassed as FCK and walks out almost immediately, and I don't even remember if he was terrible or not, but basically everyone was just like WTF. At a party, a drunk guy was bragging to girls he could take everyone there in a fight because of his high pain tolerance and asked someone to break a bottle over his head, which they happily obliged, so he pounded the rest of his beer and knocked him good over the head, but the bottle didn't bust, instead it just bounced off and he fell face first into a block wall unconscious with a huge knot forming on his head and blood streaming from his now broken nose. Guy in an expensive looking suit, with an expensive looking haircut, carrying an expensive looking briefcase, pushing through a bunch of people at a bus stop, including elderly, while loudly talking on the phone about the VIP accounts he managed. He kept looking at people and smirking. When the light changed, he immediately charged across the street, saying something like, "Move. I'm more important than you." And he slipped on the roadkill possum in the crosswalk and put his hand in it. During a house party at my sister's, one of the friends got too drunk and started asking all the women their bra size. Eventually my brother-in-law told him to go home or get knocked out. Ended up getting a ride from a DD, designated driver. Glad you specified designated driver. I thought that guy won the numbers game and had a girl WDDs take him home. A couple of mates and I traveled across America when we turned 21. And nearing the end of the drive we pulled into some college town. Where my friend was 100% certain we were about to live a life of a college movie. Drink. Parties and pussy. He was wrong. But all night at every bar we went to he'd just get drunker and drunker. And he was going up to loads of people saying hey I. Do you know where we can find a good time with a wink? Without realizing that everyone thought he was looking for a prostitute. He was also just going up to groups of girls and shouting hey ladies. We're British. It didn't work. He actually did that when I was chatting to 2 girls and they just looked him up and down and walked away. I nearly murdered him. It was at that point we all just went home. Well, to the hotel as with him in hand none of us had chance of getting laid. I had a guy try to break his hockey stick in anger at a pickup game. There could not have been lesser stakes. Nobody keeps score or takes the game seriously, and the guy was acting like he was in a Stanley Cup finals. He tried and failed to break his $200 plus stick at least 15 times because he missed a shot. My girlfriend at the time got her first acting gig in a mutual friend's film after the premiere. She and I and a bunch of local beautiful people went to a swanky bar restaurant to celebrate. She sat down at the bar. And the local male Univision anchor sat next to her sloppy drunk and started hitting on her saying did you know you look like BB Gayton, he's a little older. I just watched. Kinda embarrassed for him. Kinda chuckling. I went home and sure enough. She did kinda look like her lol. I was at a party in college and some dude started acting out some scene from The Dark Knight as the Joker in front of a bunch of confused girls. The movie had just come out a few months earlier. So it was pretty obvious what he was doing. Everyone in the immediate vicinity stopped talking and we all watched this dude awkwardly act out a one-sided scene as Heath Ledger's Joker. After which he started trying to talk to the girls while still in character. At one point he jumped up on a coffee table and one of the guys that apparently lived there angrily yelled at him to stop and get off the table unless he wanted his ass beat. Clearly caught off guard. He finally breaks character. Sheepishly says oh. Sorry and awkwardly saunters off and sits down on a couch. Trying to play it off like nothing happened. I wanted to eat a bullet. Waiting online for a bar in Allston, Boston, at 11:00 p.m. Group in front of me consisting of 4 girls and 1 visibly drunk dude. One of the girls in that group screamed and darted away as a cockroach crawled by her foot. This dude. He proceeds to pick it up. And lets it crawl between his hands and up his arm. As if it was his pet. See? Nothing to be afraid of. They're harmless. Double quote. That whole posse of relatively attractive girls he was with? Gone in a flash. He ended up waiting online with his new pet for another 15 minutes before he left. My buddy in college believed hitting on women at the bar was a numbers game. We were at the local dive bar and he noticed a group of 5 really good looking girls walk in. He walked up to the bartender and ordered 7 shots of cheap vodka. 2 for us and 1 for each of them. They were polite. But declined to drink with us. We sat at a small table and slammed the shots. I was on my way up to perform my karaoke song when I yacked. Missing the trash can. It was a dude. Just go home moment for both of us. In undergrad I took an intro to computer science class. Which was mostly freshmen. The prof was coding a simple math algorithm and offhandedly asked the value of pi. A kid started reeling off digits. And after the first 4 or 5 there was an audible groan in the class. You could tell he had memorized it at some point and thought this is my moment. But instead came off as that guy. Me and a group of buddies were at a bar in college. One of my male friends told a crude joke in the presence of a female, who he was good friends with. A drunk white knight bro who we met that night and had been hanging with us. Got very offended that someone would talk like that around a woman. And starts yelling at my joke telling friend. The female friend told him she thought it was funny and it wasn't a problem. But he gets up in the guy's face and starts flashing his USMC tattoo saying that he's a soldier and would kick his ass. We rolled our eyes and called it a night. I later saw him at a show doing coke on the dance floor. I have two. The first was at a wedding. My elderly but trendy relatives had a few drinks. They decided to hit the dance floor. The DJ plays Lil Jon. And there they are, waving their limbs and yelling skeet. Occasionally once they got a feel for the song. They had no clue what it meant. It was surreal and I was lucky enough to get it on video. Lil Jon really pulled a good one over on white people IA. The second was at someone else's family party. This guy gets drunk and starts going full creeper. There were some pregnant and nursing mothers there. He starts going on and on about the sweet taste of breast milk and how he used to take some of his girlfriends from the fridge. He won't stop talking about it and is making people uncomfortable. But he thinks he's cool. I finally tell him to switch the subject. So he starts talking about banging his girl the day after she gave birth. My wife gets this horrified look, C-section, and then the idiot starts smirking and asking the other girls how soon they had sex after birth. We just left lol. What a loser. When I worked at Domino's, one of the drivers had just gotten a brand new Cadillac. Not exactly sure which model, but it was the sports car one. Anyways, he proceeded to show every driver in the parking lot behind the store his drifting skills. He then proceeded to drift his car over a curb and into trees. Completely ruined his passenger side. He was one of those guys that always tried to one-up everybody else. So I definitely got a kick out of it. I was on the bus back home. The bus was pretty empty. Had like a group of 8 dudes in the back. 7 black and 1 white. I think some were friends but most were strangers. They were chatting and then this white dude started saying how he can rap and freestyle. So the dudes told him to give it a go. White dude starts rapping. The black dudes are impressed. White guy keeps going and then one of the black dude goes, "Isn't that Tupac?" Lol, the white dude kept denying and claiming all credit. The dude's told to rap it again. The white dude does it again. They all confirm it was Tupac's song No Mayo. They told him he has a good voice but he don't need to lie about rapping a Tupac song. I was in the front and damn was I just cringing the whole way through. I was hanging out at the river with my nieces recently and there was this spot on the bridge that everyone was jumping off into the river. I was standing up there to keep an eye on my niece and there was this annoying man who was diving off the bridge in between people who were kayaking and floating on tubes. He would jump to make it look like he was going to land on them. A few times he did end up hitting the tubes and knocking people out of them. He was pissing so many people off. It was very nerve-wracking to witness. The worst part was he seemed to be about 40 or something and he was doing this to impress all the kids on the bridge. Literally kids from age 7 to 18. He also mentioned to me that he had literally just moved to town a few days prior. I guess that was his way of trying to make friends. I went out partying with some classmates. Among them a very attractive girl. A colleague got drunk and when we were in the car about to go back home he tried to flirt with her. I already suspected that he liked that girl but he always denied it. Seeing that she was very uncomfortable, I changed places and stood in the middle so that he would leave her alone and I told him that that was enough. Guy at a party was showing off the ways he could open a beer bottle, twist off. He did the belly button, behind the knee, armpit, etc. It was going pretty well actually and he had a bunch of us watching. Then he clamped his eye down on it like the bottle cap was a monocle and proceeded to twist hard and confidently. Ripped his eyelid wide open off and had to get picked up by an ambulance. Party over. A 25-year-old coked out stripper in a bar yesterday telling everyone that her taxes paid unemployment for all these deadbeats that aren't working while trying to charm guys into buying her drinks. Was outside a bar. There's an alley to parking for the adjacent business right by the front entrance protected by a motorized arm controlling access to the parking. 2 guys on motorcycles squeeze past the gate to get into the parking. They do some rev bombing at neutral in their single-cylinder 300cc sport bikes. As they are leaving, the gate responds to exiting traffic. So it raises. One guy decides one more F-bomb in neutral is required. Because it takes him a few seconds. The gate lowers and he doesn't realize. Starts moving forward and catches the arm across his arms. Panics and Whiskey throttles the bike, breaking the gate arm off, so he's now standing there on his bike with a 9 feet gate arm across his arms, with at least 20 people now laughing their asses off and pointing at the loser. We were at a funeral for a friend who got killed. It was a very somber and sad mood. This deceased was beloved by the entire neighborhood. The background noise was sobbing and whispers. Then from seemingly nowhere this dude burst through the door with a half-gallon of black velvet and yells, "Let's get this show started." Accompanied by him throwing this hat 15 feet across the room. And knocking over the urn. It was more like a "dude, you had better just leave" moment. He ended up getting beaten shitless. We stole his shoes, whiskey and wallet. Was clubbing with a mate and her stepsister. The stepsister and I got along real well and there was sexual tension. The night was young and I wanted to build that tension more with her. Until she got wasted and started making out with a guy behind, then asked me if I wanted to kiss her. I commented that she just kissed someone full on next and she pretended like she hadn't the slightest clue in the world what I was talking about. What a downer. I was at a party while going to university. And this guy was dancing like he was going to body check everyone around him while just being generally loud and attention seeking. Out of nowhere he reaches up and takes one of the tube light bulbs from the ceiling. It was in a large basement so the ceiling was low. Plus he was tall, and just starts swinging it around wildly before smashing it over his head. He then let out a loud raw scream before running headfirst into one of the basement walls and putting his head through the drywall. At that point everyone stopped to look at him and the house owner screamed that he had to leave. Everyone knew he was going to start fighting the homeowner. But he just cheerily got up, said "no problem man," and left. Definitely a weird display for attention. I was working when this 30-40-year-old on a bike decided to do some tricks while I was grabbing carts. He would circle around me, skid, stop, do a short wheel stunt. And I'm just like, WTF. Go away. I'm trying to work and I don't give a shit about your lame bike hobby. Especially since you look old as FCK. Stop trying to impress me. I wasn't there to witness this directly. But a group of my friends were out having dinner at a restaurant. One of them was interested in the waitress. And when she came with the bill, he slammed his credit card onto the table and yelled loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "Give me your number." Double quote. Disclaimer. I wasn't there. But I know them well enough to know this is not likely to be an exaggeration. In a theater class in high school, we had to do a musical number in groups. One guy was adamant about working by himself. Fair enough. The number he performed is a number with multiple people singing to each other and he sang all the parts but also would change his accent or where he was on stage with each new character. To the point where he was out of breath from running all over the place. It honestly reminded me of Michael Scott performing an entire episode of SVU at an audition. But in song form. A guy who had a crush on me in high school was trying to show off while playing basketball. It did not go over well. He was hogging the ball, missing every shot and kept quickly glancing over at me. Think Michael Scott playing basketball. To be clear, I was not interested in him as he had a girlfriend and was basically a douche. Some dude tried to pick up my wife at a bar. We were playing pool with a couple friends and I too was sitting at the table while my wife was shooting. These two bros come up, UFC shirt on one and affliction on the other, and one introduces himself as Bass. Or some type of fish. And asks her about the band on her shirt, then asks if she even knows who they are. I feel no need to intervene as he's failing horribly already on his own. She claims it's her favorite band and yes, she's here with her husband. He gets bent because we don't wear rings and says that she's lying to people. She tells him that she didn't invite any of us and he came over on his own will. Bro. Just go home. Asking how they are. So girl thinks this will be a nice conversation. Then they ask if the girl is DTF or something like that. Dude. Just go home. You won't impress anyone and you will definitely not find true love, as this will be your strategy. Me and my roommate used to invite people from work over after we got off to drink and hang. This guy came over that we hadn't chilled with before. He got more and more drunk. And then started to try and rap. Like over everything. And would insist everyone stop talking and listen to him. Mind you, he was a drunk white boy and was not good at it. At one point I had to tell him to stop and play normal music instead of beats. Which I thought he did. Until he yells, "Saki, it's just the instrumental." At that point me and my roommate looked at each other and pretty much told him, "Dude, just go home." I ordered him an Uber and ushered him out. A bunch of years ago I was with my parents driving somewhere. And we were in our minivan and it was a nice day out, so we had all the windows open. This high school kid in a brand new Subaru WRX pulled up next to us at a red light and started revving his engine like he wanted to race. My dad had no intention of racing him because we were in a minivan. But when the light turned green, the teenager nailed the gas, missed the shift and stalled his car. We calmly accelerated away. And about 200 yards up the road was another red light. So we stopped and the kid in the WRX pulled up next to us. And clearly heard us all laughing raucously at him. He was obviously embarrassed because this time he did not try to race us. And after the light the road merged down to one lane and he backed off and let us go ahead of him. I am sure he did not go tell his friends about how he tried to race a minivan and ended up stalling instead. When I first moved to Texas I had made friends with 2 guys, which made us a 3-man group. Well, fast forward a few months and we're at the mall waiting for a movie to start when we see a really cute girl. We are middle schoolers and this girl is probably 18-21. Well, our friend decided he was gonna get her attention. But in the dumbest way possible. He walked over to her and purposely tripped himself in front of her to try and get her to help him up and talk to him, and she ended up just stepping over him and continued to press on like nothing happened. It was the funniest shit ever. But also embarrassing for all of us because we let this dude do it. Not really trying to impress someone rather than make an impression upon them. But this came to mind when I saw the question. I've read on Reddit about people who object during weddings. Everyone just gets super uncomfortable and the atmosphere shifts to an awkward state where everyone is actively hating the person that tried to object. It regardless of whether or not that person shared an opinion that the majority of people agreed with. Saying it out loud always resulted in people hating the person that spoke up.